الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم.
After reciting the Tashahhud, Ta'awuz and Surah Al-Fatiha, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih V, Ayyadahullah Ta'ala Binasrihil Aziz stated,
गुज़श्ता दिनों हमारे एक बहुत ही प्यारे बच्चे और वाक़फ़ ज़िंदगी अज़ीज़म सैयद ताले अहमद इब्न सैयद हाशिम अकबर की गाना में शहादत हुई। इन्ना लिल्लाहि व इन्ना इलैहि राजिऊन।
Recently, a most beloved child of ours and life devotee, respected Sayyid Taleh Ahmad, son of Sayyid Hashim Akbar, was martyred in Ghana. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Surely to Allah we belong, and to Him shall we return. On the night between the 23rd and the 24th of August, the MTA team was travelling towards Kumasi after finishing recording in the northern region of Ghana. At approximately 7:15, they were attacked by robbers who fired at them, and two of the three team members, including respected Sayyid Taleh Ahmad and Umar Farooq, were injured. He was first given medical treatment at a polyclinic, and approximately 4.5 hours later, whilst they were taking him to a bigger hospital in Tamale, Sayyid Taleh Ahmad passed away.
MTA International दूसरे मुल्कों में तो शायद बाद शहादतें हुई हैं, लेकिन यहाँ की पहली शहादत थी.
Although there may have been martyrdoms of members of MTA International in other countries, but this was the first martyrdom from here, and I believe that this was the first martyrdom of a Waqfin-e-Nau from the UK. Sayyid Taleh Ahmad was the maternal grandson of respected Amtul Latif Begum Sahiba and Sayyid Mir Muhammad Ahmad Sahib, and he was the maternal great-grandson of Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And in this way he was also the paternal great-grandson of Hazrat Dr. Mir Muhammad Ismail Sahib radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, being the son of his grandson. Hazrat Mir Muhammad Ismail Sahib radiyallahu ta'ala anhu was the younger brother of Hazrat Ammajan, the blessed wife of the promised Messiah alayhi salam, Hazrat Nusrat Jahan Begum Sahiba radiyallahu ta'ala anha. And in this way he had a direct lineage to Hazrat Ammajan, and through Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib he had a direct lineage to the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wassalam as well. He was also the son-in-law of Mirza Ghulam Qadir Shaheed. By the grace of Allah the Almighty, he was a Musi, and as I have mentioned, he was also part of the Waqf-e-Nau scheme. He attained a biomedical science degree and then completed his master's in journalism. In 2013, he dedicated his life, and after working in different departments, he was appointed in the press and media department. And prior to this, Sayyid Taleh used to serve the community on a local level. He served in the Tabligh, Taaleem and Ishad and Atfal departments for Khuddam al-Ahmadiyya in Hartlepool.
इनकी 2016 में MTA न्यूज़ में तकर्री हुई मुकम्मल तौर पे.
In 2016, he was appointed full-time in MTA News,
इससे पहले ये रिव्यू रिलीजन में
and before that, he served as the head of the indexing and tagging department in the Review of Religions.
MTA न्यूज़ के लिए डॉक्यूमेंट्रीज बनाई इन्होंने और मज़ीद 3 या 4 डॉक्यूमेंट्रीज पर काम कर रहे थे.
He produced several documentaries for MTA News and was currently working on another 3 or 4 documentaries.
This week with Hazur, इसमें इसका भी इन्होंने
He was also the one who initiated the program This Week with Hazur,
आखिर तक
a program about my weekly activities.
खास दिलचस्पी
And then right until the end, he continued to work on it with great enthusiasm
एडिटिंग
for its editing, etc., and also for the completion of each episode.
MTA देखने वालों के लिए.
This program has become very popular for the viewers of MTA. And aside from serving as the editor of the Tahir magazine, he also served in the Ishaat department of Khudam al-Ahmadiyya. And he wrote articles for various Jamaat publications such as the Review of Religions, Tariq magazine, and others. And under the press and media department, he went on many tours with me and generally went on tours as well.
अपने काम को ख़त्म करने के लिए और सिर्फ ख़त्म करने के लिए नहीं बल्कि मायार के मुताबिक पहुंचाने के लिए.
Respected Talib possessed an extraordinary passion and desire to not only complete his tasks, but to do so to a high standard.
और इसके लिए वो किसी खतरे की भी परवाह नहीं करते थे.
Which is why he was not afraid of any kind of danger. It is evident from the incident of his martyrdom as well that he did not worry even for a moment about the dangers.
बस ये फिक्र थी कि जिस काम के लिए मैं आया हुआ हूँ उसको आसान रंग में.
The only concern he had was that he be able to fulfill the task he had come for in the most excellent manner and on time.
इसीलिए ऐसे वक्त में सफ़र भी शुरू किया जबकि खतरे के इम्कानात बहुत बढ़ गए थे.
And it was for this reason that he set off at a time whereby there was a greater potential risk of danger.
अबू बकर इब्राहिम साहब हैं जोनल मिशनरी टमाले के. वो कहते हैं तफसील बताते हुए कुछ
The zonal missionary of Tamale, Abu Bakr Ibrahim Sahib, mentions the details of the incident that on 23rd August, when the MTA team was about to depart from Salaga, he saw Talib packing his things and said to him that you are checking out of the hotel, but when you return from Salaga, you must come and stay here once more. Upon this, Talib replied, the time is limited, so I must go back to Kumasi. Maulvi Sahib said to him that when you return from Salaga, it will be late, and it is not suitable to travel at night. Upon this, Talib stated that all right, we shall see. But he further added that I have to travel to Sierra Leone as well, and I only have 2 days left. Since a lot of work still remains to be done in Kumasi and in Accra, therefore I must go. But since you are saying it, I shall consider it nonetheless.
बहरहाल इन्होंने जब वापस आए तो यही फैसला किया कि वापसी का सफ़र करना है और ये वापसी के लिए रवाना हो गए टमाले के लिए.
In any case, when they returned from there, he decided to travel on, and so they set off for Tamale. At 6:45 p.m., Talib said to Umar Farooq Sahib that they should offer the prayer, and they all offered the Maghrib and Isha prayers in congregation. He was also concerned lest the files from the recording in Salaga be corrupted, and so he began trying to save the files onto the laptop whilst on journey. And he was carrying out this work whilst on his journey. And he could not bear for any time to be wasted. Likewise, he would always be concerned about the equipment of the Jamaat, as it was expensive and he did not want it to get lost or damaged.
पुलिस रिपोर्ट के मुताबिक जब MTA गाड़ी पाहा जंक्शन
The zonal missionary further states
तो डाकुओं
that
ने
according to the police report, when the MTA vehicle was approaching the Paha junction, the robbers started firing at them,
कहते हैं
which, as I said earlier, resulted in 2 members of the team getting injured.
किया जिसको मैं समझ नहीं पाया
The driver states that there was another vehicle passing from in front of us and indicated there was danger ahead, but I was unable to understand. And when the robbers suddenly ambushed us and I saw that in the light of the headlights, I loudly proclaimed the kalima, i.e. the Islamic creed,
तो ये ताले
and this was at the same time that the robbers began firing.
उनको भी अंदाजा हो गया फायरिंग
Sayyid Taleh was sitting at the back of the vehicle, and upon hearing the gunshots, he too realized that they were facing an attack by armed robbers.
उमर फारूक साहब कहते हैं कि इस फायरिंग के दौरान मुझे
Umar Farooq Sahib further states that during the firing, I was struck in the thigh by a bullet. However, I did not even realize at the time that I had been hit. After being sprayed with bullets, the robbers became silent, and they, i.e. the MTA team, remained there for a short while. He then states that after some time, the robbers advanced with their torches and took the driver and myself out of the car. We handed over our phones and any money that we had. Then they laid us down on the road and attacked us. He says that they also struck me on the head with a stick, which caused me to bleed. However, despite this, he says that he was more concerned for Taleh. He too, i.e. Umar Farooq, is currently ill as he was struck by a bullet and also sustained an injury to the head. May Allah the Almighty grant him good health. Pray for him as well. Later, after all this took place, the driver Abdul Rahman Sahib says that when the robbers left after looting them, he and Umar Farooq Sahib found the resolve to get up and immediately went towards the vehicle in order to check on Taleh. They found that a bullet had struck him in the back towards the right and had become deeply lodged, as a result of which he had lost a lot of blood in the vehicle. And according to the medical reports, this is what proved to be fatal. After this incident had taken place, they used a bus that was passing by to reach the Bupe Polyclinic. There he received some treatment, and then it was decided that he should be taken to the Tamale Teaching Hospital. However, while en route, he passed away, and he was declared dead at the hospital. Umar Farooq Sahib states that Taleh's head was resting on my leg, and he continuously asked me whether Hazur had been informed about the incident and whether he had been requested for prayers. He says that this incident had taken a great toll on us, and various concerns and doubts were gripping us with fear. He further states that as we were taking him to the hospital, Sayyid Taleh informed me that during the firing, he quickly hid the laptop and other equipment under the back seats, which were still there and should be retrieved. He then asked to ensure that the cameras, phones and laptop were all safe, because he wanted to ensure that all records do not go to waste. I informed him that by the grace of Allah the Almighty, all the equipment was safe. Thus, he was concerned for the property and equipment of the Jamaat and to preserve the Jamaat history which he had worked to capture. He then says that at around 9 or 9:30 his condition started deteriorating, due to which those at the polyclinic decided to immediately move him to the hospital. And as I mentioned earlier, that he passed away whilst going to the hospital in Tamale. Also, the ambulance did not have all the necessary equipment, as is the case sometimes in such countries. And also, initially it had taken some time in finding an ambulance, and he was also bleeding a great deal. Eventually, Allah the Almighty's decree came to
साहब
pass.
कहते हैं इस दौरान में जबकि हम सफ़र कर रहे थे ताले ने मुझसे कहा
Umar Farooq Sahib states that during this time, as we were traveling with our injuries, Taleh said to me, tell Hazur that I love him and tell my family that I love them.
तो फिर यही बात दोहराते थे
Umar Farooq Sahib further states that whenever he would regain consciousness, he would repeat this over and over again. He did not just say this once, but did so multiple times.
उन्होंने ये भी कहा कि आप लोगों ने हमें बहुत ज़्यादा ख्याल रखा है और हर मुमकिन मदद की
He also stated that you have taken great care of me and helped me in every possible way, for which I am thankful from the bottom of my heart.
और ये हालत
I tried to encourage him, but he was losing strength,
के बजाय अपनी हाथ की
and his condition was such that whenever I would ask him something, instead of speaking, he would give me a thumbs up to indicate that everything was fine.
सांस में तेजी आई और एक लंबी
And this is something that caused me to worry. Then he began breathing quickly, and after which there was a long silence. And from that I understood that the very thing we feared had come to pass.
नर्स और ड्राइवर आपस में लोकल जुबान में बातें कर रहे थे जिससे मुझे अंदाजा
He further states that the driver and the male nurse were speaking with one another in the local language, from which I gathered that they did not wish to inform us, but Sayyid Taleh Ahmad had passed away.
जैसा कि मैंने कहा जब टमाले पहुंचे तो 1:49 पर उनको वफात का ऐलान हुआ
And as I mentioned, that when they reached Tamale, he was declared dead by the hospital at 1:49 a.m.
कहते हैं इस खबर की वजह से सब जो थे टमाले के लोग बहुत अफसरदा
He
हो गए
further states that the people of Tamale were saddened upon this news, because it was only a short while ago they had seen him off smiling and in good spirits.
ये तो इसकी शहादत के वाकई कुछ तफसील थी एक हीरा था
These were some details regarding his martyrdom. He was a precious gem which has now departed from us. May Allah the Almighty continue to grant the Jamaat such people who are loyal and have a sincere and dedicated relationship with Khilafat, and who give precedence to the faith over worldly matters.
लेकिन इसका नुकसान ऐसा है जिसने हिला के रख दिया वो प्यारा वजूद
This loss is so profound that it has shaken us. This beautiful individual understood the spirit of devotion
निभाने वाला था
and truly fulfilled the oath he had made.
मुझे हैरत होती थी उसे देखकर और अब तक होती है कि किस तरह
Seeing him left me astonished,
इस दुनियावी माहौल
and
में
still to this day I am amazed at how, despite being a child who grew up in this worldly environment,
निभाया
he understood the essence of his devotion.
कि इसके मायार को इंतहा तक पहुंचा दिया
And moreover, he fulfilled this oath to the highest degree.
बुजुर्गों के वाकयात पढ़ता था इसलिए नहीं कि तारीख से आगाही हासिल करे
He used to read the accounts of the elders, not only to learn about history or to merely express wonder at their sacrifices.
कि उसे अपनी जिंदगी का हिस्सा बना
Rather, he did so in order to make them a part of his own life.
और इखलास का ऐसा इदराक था कि कम देखने में आता है
His understanding of devotion and sincerity to Khilafat was to a degree
ऐसा था
which is found in very few people.
बाज दीन का गहरा इल्म रखने
In
वाले
fact, I would say that this level is not found even in some who possess deep knowledge of faith.
ऐसे लोगों का इल्म उनमें तकब्बुर की बू पैदा कर देता
At times, the knowledge possessed by such people causes them to become arrogant.
है बल्कि मैं कहूँगा कि बाद वो भी नहीं समझते
In fact, I would even say
जिनका ख्याल
that
है
this
कि
level
खिलाफत के
is not even
इमाम,
understood
उसके
by
वफा
some
के
of
बारे में
those
समझते हैं।
who think that they understand the rank of Khilafat and the standards of devotion that are required.
और ऐसी वफा की कि अपनी आखिरी अल्फाज में जब
He demonstrated his utmost loyalty to Khilafat in such a way that even in his last words, when he was at the brink of death, he was mindful of his love and devotion to the Khalifa of the time.
सबको ख्याल आता है लेकिन हर दफा बार बार
Undoubtedly, everyone thinks of their children and family at such a time. But there are very few who would constantly think about their love for Khilafat before their children and family
शायद 2-3
or
साल
alongside
पहले
them.
उसने एक नज़म लिखी थी जो उसने अपने किसी दोस्त को दी थी कि
Around 2 or 3 years ago, he wrote a poem about his relationship and love for Khilafat, which he gave to a friend to keep, and also told him not to show it to anyone.
और इसने शुरू ही इस तरह किया था कि मैं खलीफा वक्त से सबसे ज़्यादा प्यार
And he began the poem by saying that I love my caliph more than the others.
कि खलीफा वक्त से जो मुझे प्यार है और मोहब्बत है
And he ended it by saying that I love my caliph, but he'll never know.
प्यारे तारे मैं तुम्हें बताता हूँ कि तुम्हारे इन आखिरी अल्फाज से पहले भी मुझे पता था
But oh my beloved Taleh,
कि तुम्हें
I tell you that even before your final words,
और मोहब्बत का ताल्लुक था
I knew that you loved and adored
तुम्हारे
Khilafat.
हर अमल से हर हरकत और सुकून से जब तुम्हारे हाथ में कैमरा होता था
This love was evident from your every deed,
सामने होता था
your every moment, when you stood before me with a camera in your hand,
मिलते थे
and even when you met me without your camera,
वो ये दफ्तर
whether in a personal meeting or with regards to official work.
इस मोहब्बत का इजहार होता था तुम्हारे चेहरे की
This love was clear from the sparkle in your eyes
इस मोहब्बत का इजहार होता
and from the unique expression of joy on your face.
तुम्हारे हर अमल से ये लग रहा होता था
In short,
किस तरह तुमसे
your every action demonstrated how you always expressed this love for the Khalifa of the time.
मुझे शायद ही किसी में इस मोहब्बत का इजहार नजर आता हो और घर में मैं जिक्र कर रहा था
I have hardly ever seen this level of love and devotion in anyone else.
जवानों में
I was discussing in my home that amongst the youth of the family of the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wassalam, I have not seen this level of devotion being expressed by anyone more than Taleh did.
बल्कि बड़ों में भी शायद चंद एक में ही
Allah the Almighty knows the state of everyone's heart. In fact, it is extremely rare even amongst elders to find this level of devotion.
दुआ है कि अल्लाह ताला इस हादसे के बाद बहुत से इस
I
मैदान
pray
में पैदा करते
that after this tragedy, may Allah the Almighty grant us more people of this standard.
ताले का वजूद ऐसा था कि जैसा कि उसने अपनी नज़्म में जिक्र किया है वो इस मोहब्बत का इजहार नहीं करना चाहता था
Taleh's spirit, as he himself described in his poem, was that he wished to hide his expression of love.
अल्लाह ताला किसी न किसी
However,
में
he was unable to
उसका
conceal
इजहार
them.
करवा देता था
In some form or the other, Allah the Almighty caused his devotion to me to manifest,
हर वक्त इस फिक्र
and
में
this is
रहता
why he was so dear to me.
कि कब खलीफा वक्त के मुंह से कोई बात निकले और मैं इस पर अमल करूं
His ever-present thought was to eagerly await any instruction from the Khalifa of the time
और किस तरह
so that he could immediately act upon it.
मैं खिलाफत के मुकाम
And
के
he did
बारे
not
में
simply want to act upon it. Rather, he also wanted to avail every opportunity to inform the world of the status of Khilafat. He was waiting for the opportunity to give up his life if needed.
कि कम कम ही देखने में आता है
Furthermore,
यही अपने काम
there are
से
very
नहीं
few
था
people who have so much devotion to their
अपने
work.
काम को बहुत पसंद करता था और लोग बहुत सारे ऐसे हैं जो पसंद करते हैं
But this immense devotion to his work was not simply because he enjoyed doing it.
उनको भी बहुत अपने काम से इश्क और लगाव होता है उसको अपने काम से अगर
There are
लगाव
many others who thoroughly enjoy carrying out their
इसलिए
work,
कि इस जरिए से
but his enthusiasm for his work stemmed from a passion
मोहम्मद मुस्तफ़ा
to want to defend the religion of Islam
दीन का दिफा करूं
and the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him.
कि ये पैगाम मैं दुनिया को पहुंचाऊंगा इसलिए कि मेरा काम
And he
है
wanted to spread this message to the world
इस्लाम के पैगाम
and convey the message of the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wasalam to the corners of the earth.
कि मैंने खलीफा वक्त का मददगार बनना है
And this is why he strove to be a helper of Khilafat.
सिरावे रहमतुल्लाह ताला की तदफीन के वक्त जब मैं कब्र के
During the burial of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih IV, rahimahullah, when I was standing near the grave,
आकर खड़ा हो गया
and before I placed the sand,
मैं नहीं
he was
जानता
standing
था
to my right side.
अब तस्वीर देखी तो फिर मुझे
At the
अंदाजा
time,
हुआ
I was unaware of him. However, when I now saw the pictures, I realized who and on what occasion it was.
कि शायद उस वक्त ये ऐद किया था
But this 13-year-old child must have pledged at the time that as he was a Waqf-e-Nur, he would now become the helping hand of the Khalifa of the
उसने
time.
रास्त बनना है और फिर उसने सालों बाद
Many years later,
अमल करके
after completing his education, he fulfilled this pledge and fulfilled it in a complete and brilliant fashion.
जर्नलिज्म में भी उसने मेरे मशवरे से
Upon my advice, he studied journalism, and by completing this and becoming a shaheed, a martyr, he truly demonstrated that he was indeed the helping hand of Khilafat.
ए प्यारे ताले, मैं गवाही देता हूँ कि यकीनन तुमने अपने वक्फ और अहद के
O beloved Tale,
हासिल कर लिया.
I testify that you certainly attained the very highest levels of fulfilling your pledge of life
के
devotion.
अल्फाज पर अमल करने की कोशिश करता था. इसका अंदाजा इससे हो जाता है.
You can begin to appreciate just how much he constantly strove to fulfill every word of the Khalifa of the time by the following.
उन्होंने कहा कि मुरब्बियान को
In some meetings with missionaries,
कि 1 घंटे के करीब
I advised them to offer the tahajjud prayer, i.e. the pre-dawn optional prayer, for approximately an hour.
बाद मुरब्बियान की तरह ये सवाल नहीं किया.
But respected Dale did not, like certain missionaries, question how they could possibly wake up during the short nights of the summer and offer the tahajjud prayer for an hour. Instead, he strove to act upon this guidance.
उसे बड़ा थका हुआ देखा तो वजह पूछी.
One of his friends, who is a missionary, one day noticed that he was exhausted and inquired why this was so.
पढ़ने का कहा है.
Upon this, Dale replied that the Khalifa of the time had advised the missionaries to offer the tahajjud for an hour.
आज तहज्जुद की
And
वजह
he
से
said that since he was a life devotee, therefore this instruction was also applicable to him.
इस मुरब्बी ने
And he
मुझे
said
लिखा
because he had offered tahajjud, he could not sleep fully, and this is why he felt tired.
कि मैं
This
बराह
missionary
रास्त
wrote to me
मुखातिब था
that this made him very ashamed and embarrassed,
और मैंने
that
खलीफा
whilst he was the one who had been directly addressed, however, he could not fulfill the guidance of the Khalifa of the time.
जिंदगी के अहद को निभाने
And on the other hand, Dale, to fulfill the pledge of a life devotee, acted upon this guidance.
मयार.
Thus, this was his elevated status of fulfilling his pledge.
और खानदान हज़रत मसीह मौद अलैहिस्सलाम का फर्ज होने
He is therefore an example for life devotees to follow,
वो
and also as a member of the family of the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wassalam,
फराद खानदान पर मुनहसर
he is also an example in loyalty and devotion for the other members of the family of the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wassalam.
अलैहिस्सलाम
Now it rests on the family members of the promised Messiah alayhi salam that to what extent they strive to live up to this and do justice to being related to the promised Messiah alayhi salam.
उसे कोई मुकाम नहीं मिलता. अगर कोई उनसे इज्जत
There is no value or status in any physical relationship to a family.
दुनियादारी की वजह से नहीं है.
If anyone respects them,
और ना कभी
it is not on account of any worldly achievements or materialistic pursuits, and neither can this ever confer upon them respect.
और दीन को दुनिया पर मुकदम करने वाले.
It is rather in them being servants of the faith and giving precedence to their religion over worldly matters.
दुनियादारों में तो करोड़ों लोग इनसे बेहतर हैं. माली लिहाज
Otherwise, there are tens of millions of people in the world better off than them
लिहाज से बेहतर
financially.
नहीं. उनके नजदीक भी इनकी कोई इज्जत नहीं.
And even those who are not better off financially do not see them in a higher rank or status.
कि इस जाने वाले से नसीहत हासिल करें.
Thus, I also say to the members of the family of the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wassalam, to derive lessons from this departed soul
बढ़ें.
and increase in your levels of devotion and sincerity.
अपना अहद निभाया और दीन को दुनिया पर मुकदम किया.
Just as this personification of loyalty fulfilled his pledge and gave precedence to his faith over materialistic desires, the members of the family of the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wassalam should emulate his example.
करने वाली.
For this is what will confer respect and grant the blessings of Allah the Almighty to them.
अफराद खानदान
Otherwise,
को मामूली सी
materialistic gains and worldly desires will not give members of the family of the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wassalam even the smallest degree of honor and
अमल सही
respect.
नहीं है.
To be the son or daughter of a revered or senior member of the Jamaat is not a source of pride if your actions do not make you worthy of that honor.
कभी शिकवा नहीं था.
And as I've said, he was also an extraordinary model for life devotees. He never complained about his minimal allowance. He was always grateful for whatever he received and made ends meet with it.
गुजारी के जज्बात से लबरेज
And if he happened to obtain some additional money from somewhere,
दुआ की.
it would fill him with sentiments
अल्लाह
of
ताला कभी मुझे
gratitude.
तंगी ना देना. और फिर अल्लाह ताला ने
He had prayed to Allah the Almighty to prevent him from ever falling into straitened circumstances,
बेशुमार
and Allah the Almighty always answered this prayer. He regularly kept fast and he possessed uncountable qualities. Many who are writing letters of condolences to me are mentioning these numerous qualities, including his relatives and close friends. These are qualities which are even astonishing to me. I knew how loyal he was to an extent. However, his standards of piety and righteousness were very elevated. This is why I deem it appropriate to present to you aspects of his life in the words of others. These are sentiments of his wife, parents, siblings, as well as friends, and include various details and incidents. Amir Safi Sahib, the editor of the Review of Religions, says that Taleh was enabled to serve the Review of Religions for 4 years as head of the Indexing and Tagging Archiving project. This was a huge responsibility that he fulfilled, and he prepared an index for 100 years of the Review of Religions, a list of various categories and the different tags for articles. This was a very large-scale project that he worked on with great dedication and determination. This was a team of 11 people who had to carry out a task requiring immense efforts. And with the grace of Allah the Almighty, they completed this task, and Taleh supervised and led all of this. He further states that I witnessed with my own eyes Taleh's immense qualities. He had brilliant organizational and administrative skills, immense passion and dedication to serve, and unflinching loyalty and love with Khilafat. He further states that one quality I witnessed of Taleh is his ability to take a project from ground zero, from nothing, and build it with his own initiative, and with his passion and his drive to make it into something huge and exemplary. He would never wait to be pushed. He would never wait to be reminded. Rather, he would leap forward like a person who was obsessed and utterly devoted for something. And he was like those people whom the promised Messiah ﷺ has stated, that they serve the religion so passionately, like one who becomes zealous and utterly devoted in sincerity. Taleh cared not for the world. Whenever he had the opportunity to serve, all that mattered to him was the Jamaat and Khilafat. For him, that was everything. He then states that I can describe all I observed in him in a nutshell by the following, that for him everything revolved around Khilafat. Although he had a personal connection with the Khalifa of the time, but whenever I relayed any guidance of yours to him, he would freeze and his eyes would open up, and he would listen like a child getting candy. Then he would thank me for conveying your guidance. He further states that he would not work on just one but several documentaries at a time, and I would be astonished at how he was able to work on several documentaries at the same time. Many a times we had no idea that he was working on certain documentaries, as he wanted to surprise us. Taleh also had excellent research abilities, and another quality of Taleh is that he always wanted to ensure his family and relatives served and were attached to the Jamaat. And whenever I told him that such and such of his family or relatives had served the Review of Religions well, he would be delighted. Qudus Arif Sahib, Sadr Khudam al-Ahmadiyya, states that I knew him from childhood, and I witnessed that Taleh had studied the short commentary by Hazrat Malik Ghulam Farid Sahib radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, as well as the 5-volume commentary. In fact, he highlighted various parts in the short commentary and had also studied the 5-volume commentary in great detail and had highlighted various verses and added small notes in it. I will share some details with regards to him reading the 5-volume commentary. He took a gap year after his BSc, and it is after this, or perhaps during a mulaqat in the office, that I told him to read the 5-volume commentary. I thought that he would take many years to complete it, yet within a few months he returned and told me that he had read it completely, and I was astonished when I heard this at the time. He further states that he also produced documentaries which the youth enjoyed. For example, he made a documentary on football in which he kept in view including points of moral and spiritual training. He further says that the documentaries he produced on MTA were one better than the other. I remember when Brutality and Injustice, 2 Trials in a Time, was broadcast, I sent a message to Taleh that the documentary is very faith-inspiring. Upon this, he replied with utmost humility that please pray for us. All of this is the blessings of Allah. On Twitter, someone once objected to the name of the documentary, and Taleh replied to it, and when I mentioned this to him, he stated that because the Khalifa of the time has approved the name, therefore I defended it. However, if either Abid or I had named it, I would never have replied. However, since the Khalifa of the time has approved this, therefore I must explain and defend it. He further states, in the first virtual Atfal rally, I asked Taleh through the Muhtamim Atfal to relate some of his accounts with you. Initially, he did not agree, but when I asked him directly as Sadr Majlis, he agreed. And the Atfal thoroughly enjoyed the incidents he related. After this, Taleh then messaged Sadr Majlis Khudam al-Ahmadiyya and stated, I had wished to reform myself through this, because I considered myself in need of reform and unable to advise others and relate accounts. Or I will relate these at an elderly age when I am near my death. In the meantime, I hope to spend my time quietly hidden away. However, you have managed to extract these accounts from me. However, Allah the Almighty was aware that this was the right time for him to share his incidents. Respected Satwat Sahiba, Taleh's wife, relates that he was very loving and affectionate. He was very compassionate and kind both with our children and towards me. He was so caring that he appreciated even the smallest of things. He never complained about food he was given regardless of how it was. She further states that after my father's martyrdom, I became quite worried, and soon after I was engaged. She says, I was very sad because of the loss of my father. However, Taleh took great care of me and ensured I did not remain sorrowful. She also states that after my engagement, I thought just how much Taleh loves the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. Although he was an adult, yet he cried like a child when he discussed the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him. He would relate stories to our son Talal about the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and when doing so he would weep and cry intensely. He was familiar with a great deal of accounts relating to the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and had even memorized many of them. And many others have also written regarding this, that he possessed a deep knowledge of history and of the life of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him. She further states that he would say to me that Talal goes to a Christian school, and so on the way to taking him there I recite Surah Ikhlas, so he repeats it after me. He was greatly devoted to Khilafat and had a sense of great honor to defending it. There are many seemingly small things which actually demonstrate a person's sincerity. She says that he would become so overjoyed whenever he found out that you were happy with him or our son. He always treated us after any mulaqat, or he would give Talal some chocolates, saying to him that he had been a really good boy, or sometimes he would treat us to an ice cream. He would express his happiness on small things because he felt that our son had behaved really well, or that they had a good mulaqat.
बाज़ कहती हैं कि बाज़ दफ़ा उसको ये ख्याल होता था कि मैं किसी बात को नापसंद किया है. ये ख्याल ही होता होगा क्योंकि मुझे नहीं याद कभी ऐसी कोई वाक़या हुआ हो.
She also states that sometimes he felt that I was displeased with him about something. This must have just been something he thought, because I do not remember any such incident where I was displeased with him. But she states that whenever he thought you were upset with him, he would weep immensely in his tahajjud prayer, and he would beg Allah the Almighty for forgiveness, and he would weep and cry so much, like a child wailing.
और दिस वीक वाला प्रोग्राम भी जब उसने
Similarly, after producing documentaries, he would have the same concern as he waited in anticipation for a positive response and approval from the Khalifa of the time. And when he started the program this week, he was elated that he would get the greatest possible opportunities to be in my office and record me.
बिल्कुल गैर मादियत पसंद था कभी उसने किसी चीज़ की ख्वाहिश नहीं की
She further states that another great quality he possessed was that he always gave precedence to his faith over worldly matters. He was completely averse to materialistic things, and he never sought after anything worldly. He never harbored greed for material things, and he had no desire for worldly pursuits.
जो भी उसको दिया है उसी पर वो खुश था और जो कुछ उसके पास था
He would be anxious whenever he was gifted with something expensive, and he was happy and entirely content with what he had, and he would thank Allah the Almighty profusely for it.
उनके साथ माली मामलात में
He would say that in his childhood he read an incident of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih the first radiyallahu ta'ala anhu about how Allah the Almighty assisted him in financial matters. He said that I immediately raised my hands and prayed, "O Allah, treat me in the same manner." And he had full conviction that Allah the Almighty had accepted this prayer of his. And he thought that Allah the Almighty would treat him the same as Hazrat Hakim Maulvi Nuruddin Sahib radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And indeed this came true. She states that I myself saw that whenever he would be in need of money, he would instantly receive it from somewhere. She says that recently, after a time period of 10 years, a loan company phoned him to say that they owed him £1,000. He was so overjoyed and said that he could use that to pay his car insurance and also pay towards the necessary maintenance of the car, and that he would no longer need to ask from the Jamaat. His wife further states that I am a witness to the manner in which Allah the Almighty afforded him with His love. He would narrate an incident about this treatment and stated that when I was a student in university, which is approximately 10 years ago, I was extremely hungry, but I did not have any money left. And so I offered my prayers, and when I had finished, I saw that there were £10 lying under my bed. He was surprised and said that Allah the Almighty had given this money to him. He had absolute trust in Allah the Almighty. His wife states that I would say to him that some people make financial provisions, etc. But he was convinced that Allah the Almighty would provide for him. Therefore, he did not need to chase after the world and instead focused on fulfilling his waqf. She then says, then when we lived in our previous rental home and the tenancy agreement came to an end, the council wrote to us saying that due to the council tax bill or the electricity bill, we had some surplus money of around £200 to £300. Upon this, he immediately said that he would return it to the Jamaat, even though the Jamaat did not ask for it and did not follow up strictly saying that he must return the amount. However, he said that he wanted to return the amount to the Jamaat and did not wish to be a burden on the Jamaat. And he would say that if it was possible, he would pay for all of this from his own self, and he did not like being a burden upon the Jamaat or request anything from the Jamaat. Even in the last days, his only worry was that he was taking expensive equipment of the Jamaat to Africa, and how would he look after it? He did not worry about himself at all. He was also very hospitable, and he would always look after his family and my family. He always wore a simple attire. She further states, I have a feeling that some people misunderstand him or think that perhaps he was arrogant or spoke out abruptly. However, his confidence was such that he would say things in a loving manner. He did not have the slightest bit of arrogance in him. Taleh was very forgiving and would cover the faults of others. He would never hold a grudge against anyone. His father writes that all praise belongs to Allah. Through His special grace and benevolence, Allah the Almighty bestowed our son with the rank of martyrdom. He further says that owing to a dream I had seen, I began preparing my wife and Taleh. And when I narrated this dream to Taleh, He said,
मैं बड़ा हैरान हो
that,
गया।
"Have you seen a dream about being martyred?"
उसने कहा मैंने भी ये ख्वाब देखा
Upon this, I was surprised and asked him how he knew,
कि आप शहीद हो
to
गए,
which he replied that he had also seen a dream in which he saw that I had been martyred.
कि अल्लाह ताला ने एक बेटे को अपने बाप से जिसको मोहब्बत की इजाज़त दी है,
Nonetheless, he says that Taleh had the utmost love and reverence as permitted by Allah the Almighty between a father and son.
कि इसी वजह से उसने ये दुआ
And I
की होगी
think that it was for this reason that perhaps he prayed to be granted the station of martyrdom instead of his father.
मुकाम का था कि अल्लाह ताला उसे
And because he was worthy enough for Allah the Almighty to bestow upon him the rank of martyrdom, thus he bestowed him with this honor.
और उसने मिशनरी साहब को ये भी कहा था गोली लगने के बाद कि चाहे मैं जिंदा रहूं या
And after he was shot, he said to the missionary sahib that whether I survive this or not,
बचपन से
I have fulfilled my mission.
कहते हैं कि बचपन से अल्लाह ताला ने उसके दिल में फूंक दिया था कि मैंने तुझे एक खानदान
He
में
further
जरूर कर
states
दिया है,
that from an early age, Allah the Almighty had placed in his heart that although he was born into a certain family, he ought to understand his responsibilities and fulfill them,
मेरी
and that he should know that his life does not belong to him, but in fact belongs to Allah, and that he must live his life by Allah's command alone.
कहते हैं कि ताले ने अपनी जिंदगी और अपनी मौत से मोर कर दी कि इसने जिम्मेदारी का हक अदा कर दिया।
He further states that through his life and death, Talib proved that he fulfilled this responsibility of his. He further states
जिसके दिल में कूट कूट कर अल्लाह ताला ने अपनी मोहब्बत और अपने
that he possessed a soul whereby every fiber of his being was ingrained with the love of Allah and Allah's loved ones. From his childhood, he possessed such a heart that upon hearing the name of the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, and the mere mention of him, his innocent lips would quiver and his eyes would be filled with tears. He had a pure soul which was free from any evil. He was beautiful inside and out, and if I was to make a comparison, it would be with Prophet Joseph alayhi salam. He possessed a resolute character, and owing to his love for the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, his soul would wander among the streets of Makkah and Medina 1400 years ago. His body was infused with love in its entirety. His livelihood, food and drink and every breath was for the sake of Khalifatul Masih. His mother Amtu Shakur Sahiba writes, I am very blessed and very fortunate that Allah the Almighty granted me such an extraordinary child. The 31 years of Taleh's life was one of the greatest blessings of this world. She then mentioned a dream of a woman who saw a child in a cradle that has extended his arms outside, and she heard the child say, "Peace be upon you." Next to the child was a blue color card which contained the words Allah in Arabic and God in English. This lady would say that she thinks that the color blue means a boy, and she saw this dream before the birth of Taleh and related it. She stated that she thought that she would be bestowed with a boy, and that wherever the boy would go, he would spread peace and tranquility. In any case, she further states that I was bestowed a beautiful and handsome child. In 2005, when he was 15 years old, we did wasiyat at the same time. He was very mindful of matters related to faith. She then says that when he was 3 years old, he memorized certain chapters of the Holy Quran. And when she told her mother, she was very surprised by this. She further states that I also remember that when he was just 3 years old, I would share matters of tabligh with him, and he would attentively discuss them with me. He was very good in his studies and would pass with good grades. It was my desire that he would become a doctor, but Allah the Almighty had planned something else. After obtaining a degree in biomedical sciences, Allah the Almighty enabled him to complete a master's in journalism. She states that after his demise, I have come to realize more than before that just how much love he had for you. She further states that when you instructed him to make documentaries capturing historical aspects of the Jamaat of MTA, you also gave him permission to independently work on these projects. And this is something that greatly inspired him. She further states that his wife Satwat told me that he had sent her an email in 2019 which consisted of a list of 8 programs, and stated that if something happened to him, to pass this list on to the relevant people for its completion. His sister Nudrat says that having lived with Taleh, I saw his dedication to Jamaat work. He would often return home late due to his work. I came to stay with them during my time in university, and he would return home sometimes after 10 p.m. and at times after midnight. He would eat his dinner and then continue his work. For him, even his days off were not really a holiday until his Jamaat work was not complete. He always worked with passion and enthusiasm, and even in his spare time, he would watch documentaries and certain videos. And I have never seen anyone study and analyze a program in such depth as if it were a textbook. Upon asking, he would reply that to be the best at his craft, he had to study lots of different documentaries and videos. He had an extraordinary talent for preparing exceptional documentaries about the history of the Jamaat. He had an extensive knowledge of Islam, and he was often the first person I went to if I had any in-depth questions about Islamic teachings. He had studied the hadith very carefully, and in the answer he would often present a hadith that most people would not know of and would give its reference as well. He would reference verses of the Holy Quran on various topics, and he was able to talk about any given topic. He could explain concepts and debate so powerfully that you would be left with no option but to accept his point. He also began learning the Arabic language and had a good grasp of Arabic grammar. And this is because he desired to understand the word of Allah firsthand. I once asked him how he had studied Arabic in such depth, and he sent me a comprehensive list of instructions and guided me. In this list, there were 26 lessons which contained many points and tips. He used all his intellectual capabilities to attain the nearness of God and to serve the Jamaat. She further states that there are 2 dreams that I know of which Taleh directly discussed with me and which pointed to his martyrdom. The first dream was related to me by Taleh and was during a discussion about his son Talal. And that was that Talal had an extreme fear of one of his parents passing away. And this was because he knew about the martyrdom of Chacha Uncle Qadir. Taleh then became a little serious and lowered his tone. She then says that I do not remember all the details of the dream, but I do know the overall message. Taleh said that I do not claim to be anything like my father-in-law, but I had a dream. And in this dream, a similar incident took place. In this dream, Taleh was wearing the Khudam al-Ahmadiyya colors, and whilst holding the flag, he was entering paradise. And everyone was calling him by his father-in-law's name, saying, Mirza Ghulam Qadir has come. The second dream which I have an account of is in the form of a message from Taleh. I fell ill during my pregnancy and my situation became quite serious. I was admitted to hospital several times, and he would regularly phone me and inquire of my health and try to reassure me. During this time, he mentioned one of his dreams that indicated that his sisters will live on after his demise. He stated that a few years earlier he saw a dream wherein he was entering paradise and his relatives had organized a welcoming party for him. He stated that in his dream he was shocked upon learning of his demise and was worried lest his younger sisters had passed away before him. And so he looked around but could not find them anywhere. He stated to his sister that if this dream was true, then she need not to worry, even though she had to go into hospital and the doctors had said that it was a very serious situation. However, he told her that she should not worry, because if this dream of his was true, then she would get better. By the grace of Allah the Almighty, everything returned to normal thereafter. She further states that she was very proud of his intelligence and love for Khilafat. His younger sister says, he was an excellent role model, and I had the opportunity to learn many things from him. She further stated that when I was 13 or 14 years of age, At home, Talib once wished to recite one of his most favorite chapters of the Holy Quran, and thus he recited Surah Yusuf in a very beautiful and melodious manner. He would also say that he would often listen to Hazrat Khalifatul Masih IV Rahimahullah's Darsul Quran, and he would listen to the dars whilst travelling to and from office. Once, she says that I shared a joke with him which mentioned Christianity and slightly mocked the faith. However, upon this, he stated that they should not mock any faith, because in this way people will also speak against us as well. Abid Wahid, who is serving as the Central Press Secretary and is also his maternal uncle, states, I had a very special relation with Talib. We did not just share one relation, but our bond consisted of many different relations. I was his maternal uncle, but there was not much of a difference in our age, and he was like a younger brother and a friend. There was only a difference of 7 years. He says that I always felt and witnessed as well that Talib had immense love for the family of the promised Messiah alayhi salam. If anyone from among the family of the promised Messiah alayhi salam had done something wrong, he would feel great pain and sadness due to it, because it would cause dishonor to the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wasalam and the Khalifa of the time. He had love for his family members, but did not love them blindly. Rather, he would be sad and pained and could not tolerate if someone from among them had committed an act which would bring disrepute to the name of the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wasalam or his family and the Khalifa of the time. He further states that he would often speak to me on such issues, and there would always be a sense of pain in his voice. Although he was very proud to be a member of the promised Messiah alayhi salam's family, but he would not go around mentioning this to everyone or take advantage of it. Many people did not even know of his relation with the family of the promised Messiah alayhi salam. He further states that after a few months of working in MTA News, Talib came to me and said that it seems to me that MTA News is considered as a very ordinary section in MTA, and people in MTA openly or through their attitude towards it say that MTA News is one of the weakest departments within MTA. However, Talib took this as a challenge and very confidently stated that when the various projects will be completed, then inshallah people will watch MTA News with great interest and will say that the best programs on MTA are those produced by MTA News. He stated that this was his challenge, which he had accepted to take on. Thereafter, Talib produced some documentaries and various other programs, and I saw that for the preparation of these documentaries, he would often spend 18 to 19 hours in the day. His recent trip to Africa was based on my instruction in which I directed that MTA News should go to Africa and produce a documentary on the Nusrat Jahan scheme. And according to the program, he was first to travel to Ghana, Sierra Leone, and then the Gambia. Hence, he had gone for this purpose in order to produce a documentary on the Nusrat Jahan scheme. He says that before traveling to Africa, Talib very diligently made preparations for everything. He prepared a detailed travel plan with a full schedule of daily activities so that no time was wasted. He planned everything very carefully. He further states that there would often be a difference of opinion between me and Talib, and often after a few minutes of debate, I would accept defeat because I knew that until I did not accept his argument, he would continue to debate and give his opinions. However, I noticed one thing, that if during the course of the discussion I stated that the opinion of the Khalifa of the time was such and such, then he would say that if Hazur's opinion is even slightly different to mine, then I shall openly accept the fact that I am completely wrong. He was preparing a documentary on Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and his cousin told him that make a really good documentary on Abba Jan. The cousin was the granddaughter of Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and she said that because not every day that such documentaries are made. Upon this, Talib stated that I don't think it will be as good because it is not directly about the Khalifa, but may Allah enable it to be such that people like it. This was his relationship with Khilafat. Then Mirza Talha Ahmad has also written that he had planned to produce a documentary on Chaudhry Zarfullah Khan Sahib radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and for this he had also assigned me some work. By the grace of Allah the Almighty, he would produce very good documentaries, and he had a great skill in script writing and storytelling. Adam Walker Sahib writes, I believe it is Adam Walker Sahib. He writes that I knew Talib from childhood, and later we both worked together in Khudam al-Ahmadiyya, Central Press Office and MTA. Particularly in relation to MTA work, I noticed that Talib would always very meticulously assess the work, and he would delve into the depth of the matters. If ever he had an idea of spreading the message of the promised Messiah ﷺ, or the instructions and guidance of the Khalifa of the time to other people, he would without any hesitation discuss it with me and express his thoughts. He would always be thinking of the different ways of how to spread the message online. And from this, it is evident that he would deeply ponder over your instructions and would strive towards its implementation. He would always give precedence to speaking the truth, and whenever he wished to present a suggestion or express his opinion, he would always do it honestly and with no ambiguity. He would always give honest feedback to those who he worked with. Naseem Bajwa Sahib writes that I was serving as a missionary in Bradford between 2001 and 2009, and during this time I would also travel to the Hartlepool Jamaat. I always saw him passionately taking part in the programs as a tifl. He was a tifl who was punctual, disciplined, intelligent, passionate to increase his religious knowledge, offer prayers in a very calm manner, obedient, hospitable, respectful towards his elders. He possessed great love for Khilafat and would intently listen to the words of the Khalifa. He would fulfill his responsibilities in a very excellent manner. He would very carefully ponder over matters, occupy himself in the remembrance of Allah, passionately take part in tabligh, and would recite the Holy Quran in a very beautiful manner. And later in his youth, his qualities manifested even more. And one of his cousins, Mubarak Ondemand, states, one of the qualities of Talib which I noticed was his sense of contentment and simplicity as a life devotee. Many a times he would recount the blessings of Allah the Almighty had bestowed upon him. I never noticed him having any interest for material things. In fact, if ever any worldly matter would be discussed in front of him, he would laugh it off in his own unique manner and express his gratitude to Allah the Almighty, yet He enabled him to be a life devotee, and thus made him free of such matters, and God Himself granted him all his needs. He was a true life devotee. One of his friends and missionary, Noshirwan Rashid, states that I had the opportunity to serve alongside Brother Talib in MTA News for the past 3 years. In these 3 years, Talib was not only my colleague, but also my teacher, and above all a friend and a brother. He further states, in the past 3 years I saw Talib regularly keep a fast on Thursday, and he was very watchful over his 5 daily prayers. He would go to the mosque ahead of the prayer time, and I also saw that he would pay his chanda well in time. In any case, there are many accounts, and many people have written to me, and I have mentioned only a few in view of the time. He did true justice to being a member of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and promised Messiah alayhi salam's physical and spiritual progeny. He was from among the progeny of the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, and Allah the Almighty chose him for this sacrifice in the month of Muharram. As I mentioned earlier, that he was a precious gem among the life devotees. May Allah the Almighty continue to elevate his rank. I am hopeful that Allah the Almighty has granted him the nearness of the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. In fact, after his demise, someone saw in a dream that the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, was standing in one place, and Talib went running towards him and embraced him, and the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, also embraced him closely and said, "Come, my son, welcome." Thus, how fortunate are those who offer sacrifice for the sake of their faith and attain such a lofty rank. May Allah the Almighty be the protector and helper of his wife and children, and may He grant them patience and strength. May He also grant patience and strength to his parents and siblings, and enable his children and his siblings to continue his virtuous deeds.
नमाज के बाद इंशाल्लाह आज उसका जनाजा भी होगा। जनाजा
Inshallah, after the prayers today, I will lead his funeral prayer as the funeral has arrived.
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله عباد الله رحمكم الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون اذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله أكبر.